Yeah, we're already live.
Fair enough. Well, pre-flight checks that we need to do because episode 15 originally, unfortunately, we had some problems with XSplit, and I usually, make sure that the audio is fine. But that was one of the very few episodes that I didn't. And so, unfortunately, some problems with XSplit, and this is episode 15 again.
Yes.
5 weeks late, I think.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's practically on time for us. I mean,
Yeah, pretty much. I guess, end of this kind of era of me having a cold, of technically wrong, I suppose. But we'll get into that later, I suppose.
Funnily enough, it's called episode 15, The End of an Era.
Oh, okay, there you go. I was wondering whether we didn't really... I mean, we thought about this for quite some time, but we, just kind of launched straight into it, which is fantastic. It's a great quality. Pixitle, the best mediocre content on YouTube.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, my internet was out for a month straight. Pretty much we recorded episode 15 and then realized that we had horrible audio issues and, just kind of had to scrap it. And then the day afterwards, I had a power cut to my house. It blew up one of my monitors, which had a shitty external power supply, just a cheap replacement unit. But I got it for free, and it was 1080p. It was my first 1080p monitor, actually. I was running on 1366 by 768, which was
nice.
Such a great resolution.
Oh yeah, that is the height of gaming quality, right?
Yeah, I remember like a couple years ago, I was talking about resolutions to you, and you were like, "Well, it's higher than 720p at least." It's the only good point about that resolution, because it's horrendously... Nothing scales at that resolution. Nothing scales properly. But yeah, so my monitor blew up, and it turned out that it also bricked the router, and it started to desync. However, I was I was calling TalkTalk, my ISP. I called them 6 times. I ordered 4 engineers, 2 showed up. And each time I'd be like, is it just the router? Because you say that the line is fine, you say that everything's fine, but it's not, and the router's just spazzing out half the time. Can you just send me a new router? Because, I mean, this one's 2.5 years old anyway. So just send me a new router, please. Come on. That might just be the thing. So they sent an engineer around. He tested the line without the router, which clearly reported it was fine. That was 2 weeks in. It's fine. No, it's not. It was okay. It was actually okay for about 2 hours afterwards, and then the internet completely went out, because previous to this we were having synchronization issues. So we'd get 5-10 minutes of internet maximum, and then it would be offline for 5-10 minutes. So, you could barely get through a YouTube video in that time. It was a nightmare. About the only thing you could do was Netflix, because they preload frames properly, whereas YouTube are dickheads about that. They used to load the whole video, and for whatever reason they don't really do that much anymore. So yeah, it just completely screwed. And then after the engineer left, 2 hours later, internet completely out, not being able to use it whatsoever. I mean, it's not ideal for podcasts, because halfway through the podcast you just be Jamie, kind of trying to fill time while I get back online so we can actually discuss the topics.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah. It'd be like Tech Syndicate without Windle.
Well, I mean...
Anyway!
Are we gonna go there?
We're gonna go there eventually.
Okay.
But yeah, so finally I got an engineer around, really nice bloke, newest stuff. We had a laugh. I talked about it, and just fucking copper and nightmare. And he told me actually that my neighbours, just up the street from me, will be receiving will be able to receive gigabit internet soon.
Ooh,
so they already have the potential speeds of about 300 megabits a second, and they're getting it upgraded to a gigabit, and I'm sitting here with 36 megabits a second, which, by the way, even though my internet is fixed, is about 17 currently. It's the fastest it's gone since I got the new router.
I mean, it's something.
It's internet, yeah. I can do this before I move the fuck out of this place, which is another reason why we didn't do it last week, because been incredibly busy. But yeah, so that was a bit of a nightmare. And I'm essentially going to just have the topic list from episode 15, so month-old news, and then have a bunch of shit to talk about Zen and Vega 10 and the actually interesting stuff that came out, but not really in the depth that I'd like to, because to be honest, the last 3 days have just been trying to catch up, because I got my internet back on Tuesday, so we thought maybe Wednesday, maybe Friday, maybe something. Nah, I'm still completely behind, like, fucking hell. I missed the whole Tech Syndicate thing. Like, when I got my internet back, Jamie was like, oh, did you have you seen Tech Syndicate? And I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, you should have a look.
Yeah. I kind of refrained from telling you that while your internet was out.
Yeah, that would have... Oh, man. I would have used up all of my fucking mobile data just, like, reading and watching and all that stuff, yeah. I mean, I was living on the edge. Seriously, I used 3.7 gigabytes out of my 4 gigabytes in about a week. Because previous to that, you know, when my contract refreshed, or not contract, but it's pay-as-you-go, you know, monthly, blah, blah, blah. So when that refreshed, the internet had just gone out fully. So the only time that I could watch or do anything was on my phone. And, you know, beforehand I was like watching a bit of Netflix every now and then because, again, it loads frames and stuff. I couldn't really watch YouTube videos because as soon as your internet goes out midway through a video, the entire video just crashes. You can't continue watching even if it's preloaded some frames. It's just, oh, it's so dumb. So, yeah, fun times. Anyway, so about 6 weeks ago, I said that if the 460 was 15% faster than the initial benchmarks of the leaks that we saw, well, we can pretty much, yeah, it's about 15% faster. You know, it's about half as fast as a 480. It's about 60% as fast as a 470 or so. Pricing is about the same. You know, 480 best price to performance, 470 slightly less, 460 slightly less price to performance, as it usually is. The pricing is decent, other than, again, the custom coolers. Don't really understand that market. I really, it's just because AMD have got such a tight market between their graphics cards that it's not worth getting some of the more powerful, super overclocker friendly, whatever, cards, because really and truly, Polaris GPUs don't overclock for shit anyway. It's mostly just for kind of, I guess, peace of mind would be one. Acoustics, possibly, and kind of heat. But yeah, I mean, again, a bit of an odd market AMD have at the moment, but a decent one. Very good price to performance, as mentioned. But yeah, I got my 480. It finally arrived.
How
4 weeks ago. Oh, it was about a month and a half late, I think.
Nice.
Right?
Practically on time for AMD then.
Yeah, and us, of course.
Yeah, I mean, everyone good runs late, you know that.
Yeah, they've got so much stuff to do in the meantime, you know? And Jamie's only saying that because no matter what, like, I'll be on time. I'll be sitting here and be like, Jamie, you gonna do the podcast? He's like, I'll be there in half an hour, and like 2 hours later, I'm like, Jamie. It's like, oh yeah, I've been sitting at home for an hour and a half.
Oh yeah, who came on time today? And then who decided they were going to have tea at like 10?
Yeah, well, look, one time. But yeah, no, the 480 is a great little graphics card. I've been playing Doom. I bought that on a Humble Bundle sale a couple of days ago because I never buy games full price other than Fallout 4. As mentioned in episode 1, again, that's a callback. We should reference all of our older episodes. We should just fill this episode with just references from our old episodes. And not talk about any news. Just fill time until an announcement at the end. But yeah, so we didn't discuss how much we're going to say at the end, actually.
I think we'll outline our plans as a whole, you know, kind of over what we intend to do with the YouTube channel and the podcast. Kind of, you know,
yeah,
bit of a high level discussion.
All right. Well, I'll finish this little thing. 480 is okay. It's decently fast. It's decently quiet. I mean, this graphics card, okay, I got the Sapphire Nitro Plus OC. This graphics card is as quiet or as loud on like 70-80% fan speed as my 7990 was practically on idle. I've got a practically silent PC now with my Be Quiet cooler. You know, when I had a Be Quiet massive cooler with the super slow fan that even my BIOS doesn't recognize that it's spinning. You have to go in and manually tell the BIOS, no, the fan is spinning. The fan is spinning. Don't crash my computer because you think I'm not cooling my CPU, alright? Yeah, and super quiet, and the silent power supply and everything, and then a fucking 7990, which sounds like a jet engine while you're watching YouTube videos. So this is a much needed upgrade, or, well, downgrade, but upgrade in acoustics, as in less acoustics. So yeah, it's a nice little graphics card. I've been having some serious fucking problems. Now, I don't know whether it's just Windows 10 or whether it's Steam's backup of my files or something, but when I first got my graphics card, I benchmarked the shit out of Overwatch at 150% resolution, absolute ultra. I could get just about 60 FPS. It did drop down to about 55 very rarely, not quite ideal because you can notice it. So I'm staying at 100% because that's good enough, right? Very nice, smooth, fantastic, wonderful. Everything's hunky-dory. I booted up GTA and I played it for about an hour and a half because fuck benchmarking, might as well just play the game. And I booted up Fallout 4, played that for about 11 hours because at that point my internet had completely gone out. And everything was fine, right? Project Cars, just all the games I just kind of play randomly throughout the time. Absolutely fine. Then I try and boot up GTA 5 again to actually write down my benchmark numbers instead of just play the game, because I kind of forgot that I was supposed to be sort of benchmarking it. Doesn't boot no matter what I did. No, it did boot. It did boot for a while, which was strange, because it didn't boot. It booted, then it didn't boot, and then I put it in, run as administrator, didn't really do anything, so I put it in compatibility mode for Windows 8. Strange, it didn't do anything. Put it in compatibility mode for Windows 7, and then it ran. And then it didn't run. And now it just doesn't run at all. Fallout 4, similar deal, but it ran in compatibility mode for Windows 8. I don't know why it would run in compatibility mode for Windows 7 rather than 8 in the first place, but yeah, it just doesn't run anymore, so that's fun. I had like half a playthrough I have an entire fucking game that I can't play, actually. So I've been having a bit of a nightmare with that, and of course AMD, maybe it's the drivers, I don't know, but AMD, they release like maybe a driver maybe once a month, and they're usually pretty damn solid drivers, but occasionally you can have an issue and then it takes a month to fix. Where Nvidia, they release so many drivers in the span of a month that like 3 out of 4 of them could be terrible, but the last one's okay, and everybody's like, wow, they've released so many drivers. 3 out of 4 of them could break everything, but because you could just backdate anyway. Whereas with AMD, like, there was one 480 driver from launch up until very recently. Up until I got my internet back, actually. So, not the best. But again, even with the new driver, I can't run my games. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's a Windows 10 problem or maybe a directory problem because I have it on a different hard. I have no fucking clue. I really can't wrap my head around it because most of my other games, like games that I've re-downloaded and stuff like that, or just have had before, run, but specifically like Fallout 4, GTA 5 and stuff like that. And Doom works in Vulkan, fantastic, millions of FPS, gorgeous looking game, really fucking fun. I just can't play GTA 5 or Fallout 4 for whatever reason. There are a couple of other little games in my library that don't run anymore. Like Subnautica. I played through Subnautica again because they, bunch of updates, little early access title in the ocean. That doesn't work anymore. Really confused. Just, it seems to be relatively random, but there are like big AAA games that don't work. And recently I've just been buying on sale, like Steam had a sale, Humble Bundle had a sale, and I got some from G2A as well. I got like 4 games for 10 quid because nobody wants to buy Planetary Annihilation. If you want Planetary Annihilation Titans, go to G2A, get a £1.41 key for Planetary Annihilation, about £2 with the fees and everything. Get a key for Planetary Annihilation on G2A, and then upgrade to Titans, and you will save like 75% for a full price game, essentially, because you can upgrade to Titans. So that was alright. But yeah, I've just been buying little indie games and stuff because I know they run. And yeah, just to play some games. I've been meaning to get back into Overwatch, but I kind of got derailed when my internet went out kind of at the very end of the season, so I didn't quite make it to where I wanted to be. And yeah, just getting back into it. I'm rusty as well. Not nearly as much as if I was playing CSGO again, but I don't know, I just kind of feel a bit defeated. As well as a lot of the ranked stuff hasn't changed. Like, they say they're fixing it, but again, like, support players and tank players are kind of getting fucked by the system. So, even if you rank with the people that you played with for your placement matches, because they tightened the rule on which rank you need to be to play with the other people, you might not even be able to play with those people that you actually queued with to get your rank in the first place. So it's a bit of a mess at the moment, unfortunately. And in other news, I bought Rocket League, and that's a really good game. I know I'm a bit late to the party on that, but really enjoying that. Little bit, yeah. Speaking of being late to the party on things, this entire episode, as well as No Man's Sky was a flop and blah 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 blah. But EVE Online, which is the superior out of even Elite Dangerous in my opinion, though I've not actually played it, but I mean I've heard Jamie bang on about it for almost 5 years now, so it's got to be all right. But yeah, that's going free to play, right?
Yeah, it's going free to play in November. So I'm kind of excited about that. It's going to bring lots of new players to the game. It's going to change the way some of the meta game works. Potentially, no one really knows how it's going to change quite yet, but those sorts of things always change the meta in EVE. And so I'm not going to babble on for EVE forever. There's more interesting stuff to talk about. But
yeah, we kind of have to get. This is going to be a long episode. Yeah, I always liked the idea of EVE Online. It's just, back when you were properly playing, I couldn't really afford it. The subscription. I mean, the thing I like about EVE Online is I think it's the right way to do a subscription-based game where, I mean, it's a lot harder now, isn't it, where they upped the amount that you need to have to be able to pay for your subscription in-game. But the fact that you can do that in the first place, I think, is really good. But No Man's Sky was like a really, really, really good, like £15 early access game, but it's a full price game with possibly they're talking about it. The reason I wanted to also keep bring it up, it's old news, but one of Sony's directors, or one of the guys from Sony, basically said it was bad PR because and bad marketing because is it Sean Murray? Yeah, the guy from No Man's Sky essentially went out and kind of hinted. He was very vague, which is unfortunate. It leads to speculation. Look at what AMD are doing with Vega 10 and Zen. Leads to speculation, builds hype, and then, the fucking Fury comes out and you're like, it's good, but it's not that good, But yeah, EVE Online, it's kind of like space gang violence. I always liked hearing tales about the giant galactic wars and economy nukes and pirates and shit, so always pretty cool. And I like Elite Dangerous as well, because I mean I bought it in the second beta, I believe, and I played it all the way up until launch. But after that, I bought my 70 and the 90 and had some graphical glitches with Suns and just problems with Crossfire, and so I figured when I go back to it I'll have a joystick and I'll be able to really immerse myself. And I've not bought a joystick, nor have I've wanted to, but nor have I really been bothered to go back and fully immerse myself in it. But the game that, out of all of these, that I really wouldn't play, because No Man's Sky for me on sale, like 75% off, I'd pick that up, I'd spend a couple hours in it, just explore. Doesn't sound that bad, for a fucking full price game, absolutely no way, but on the Steam sale, hell yeah. And EVE Online, it takes a while to get into, and I may, when it goes free to play, who knows. And Elite Dangerous, I can always pop in every now and then. Then again, the bloody planet expansion and stuff like that is pretty damn expensive. But Star Citizen, I mean, I have a friend who's blown like nearly $1,000 on just ships. He spent 500 on a ship, and then he spent 400 on a ship, and then he spent like 20, 30, 50 on different other ships, and it's just like you've essentially spent like £1,000 on a tech demo at this point in time. And I know that's supposedly how you're supposed to fund the game, but they raised way, way, way more money than Elite Dangerous did on Kickstarter. And yeah, Elite Dangerous already was, developed to a point where it was relatively playable, but good grief, has Star Citizen got so much money, and they've got really nothing to show for it so far. It's been years.
Yeah, I could never jump on board that hype train because I was always of the mindset that like, what if it never comes out? I mean, Kickstarters are all the same in that respect. You never quite know what's going to happen with it, but it's just been this thing that's had so much money funneled into it, and like people are paying thousands of dollars for ships, which is just absurd. And progress, well, there hasn't really been any, and so will it ever come out? I don't know, but it's a pretty tech demo.
Yeah, it's pretty much vaporware at this point. I mean, there is a tech demo. Like you can go in, and the thing I really don't understand is that people are buying $1,000 ships that aren't in the game.
Yeah, $1,000 ships that haven't even been like modeled yet.
Half of them don't even have images. They're just kind of like vague ideas of a ship. Like they're not modeled, they're not in the game, they're not playable whatsoever. And you just spent a car on a ship in a game that doesn't exist yet.
I think EA are going to be sitting there taking notes.
Oh yeah, pretty much, yeah. Oh yeah. So last time on the podcast, I guess episode 14, because last time was this one, but that didn't happen. So on episode 14, I said that Kepler was that Maxwell was basically Kepler, but more efficient, which is not necessarily true. I mean, it's a similar architecture because it's NVIDIA and they didn't really change much, but it did change quite a lot. It was the kind of first generation where the lower amount of CUDA cores kind of meant better, and it was mostly just because they did go for efficiency and they tweaked the way that the clock speeds work and everything like that. But the jump from Maxwell to Pascal is like there's no jump at all. It was just nanometer jump, really. However, the jump to Volta is a massive one, according to a leak that's over a month old. So I should have researched this, but I was more interested in the Zen stuff and, of course, the fall of Tech Syndicate. So yeah, some of this is probably completely out of date by now, but what can you do, eh? But yeah, so the leak includes GV104, which is usually their kind of 70 and 80 series, right? So that would be graphics Volta or something like that, GV. So GP would be graphics Pascal or whatever. I don't know what the G stands for, but it doesn't really fucking matter. So 104 is usually like 1070 or 1080, so the 80 series and the 70 series. 102s are usually Titans. However, the odd thing is, the leak includes GV110. The last 10 series graphics card that we had was the original Titan, 780, Titan Black, and 780 Ti. So with this naming scheme being kept the same, we could be looking at an even more expensive Titan, or just a separate kind of class card with double precision. So it makes you kind of wonder that the two recent Titan X's, does the X kind of stand for excluding double precision?
It's I know it's interesting. Like the GP 110 cards. You're right. We haven't seen them in a while, and 1080. There was always a hack with the 1080 Ti where you could turn it into a Quadro, which was entertaining, and something a great deal of people did. But yeah, I
You mean was it 780 Ti?
Yeah, yeah 780 Ti, and so I'd love to see a mainstream. I'd love to see the Titan come back with double precision, not because it kind of justifies the price tag with double precision. I think if you're spending that much on a card and it's got double precision, you're kind of bridging the gap. You've got your gaming performance as primary, as they're going to try and market it, but it's got that double precision, so it's it's as much work as it is play. And I think that kind of price tag needs something like that to justify it. And so I'd love to see it come back double precision, because right now I have no idea why you'd ever want to buy a Titan.
Yeah, I mean that was always my thing. It's hard to justify a Titan in the first place, even when it did have double precision. I mean, it was a decent step up from just having a basic gaming graphics card rather than a Quadro or something like that. But still, like if you're really doing those workloads, it's not that great. But then they had the Titan X and then the Titan X again, and they don't have double precision. And the Titan XP has a bumped up price point in the first place. Like, it makes no sense. And that's just Nvidia just being dicks again for no real reason. That was like the main point. Like when the original Titan X came out, I was like, just do not buy this. Do not buy this graphics card to anybody. Like, even if they weren't even thinking about Titan, I'd just be like, hey, okay, so you're gonna be sensible, right? You're gonna buy like a 980 or something like that. Don't buy a Titan X.
Just walk into some guy in like a shop and like, oh, you're gonna buy that 460? Well, don't buy Titan.
Yeah, exactly. But with double precision, but again, a lot of the people, just fall for it and they want the best of the best, regardless of double precision, and that's how Nvidia have gotten away with it, really. But it really doesn't make any sense. But with the GV 110, if it does have double precision and all that stuff, then yeah, still hard to justify, but you can at least say, you're not buying a Titan X.
What are we going to call the next Titan?
Titan Double X?
That's something else.
No, that's
entirely.
Titan Triple X. That's right.
Yeah, we'll call it a Titan Y.
Yeah, of course.
Get all them Pokemon Go players.
But then it'll be the Titan Z, won't it? Because they won't call it the Titan Z. Nobody will they? It's like Ti, and I know Ti kind of stands for Titan, but it's always been the Ti. It used to be the Titanium, and that's the I guess it stands for Titan because it was 780 Ti is more or less the 780 Titan. So who knows? And Nvidia have boxed themselves into rather small corner with naming schemes now. Because I really don't think they planned to go past the Titan Black. I think some higher up in Nvidia was just like, hey, why don't you just cut down the GV 104 or make a GV 102 rather, and then slap a Titan brand on it.
Look on the bright side. Their naming scheme is not as confusing as Cooler Master's naming scheme.
What's their naming scheme like then?
Oh, I'm not even gonna try. Like they have the stupidest naming scheme in history. I'll see if I can find an example later. But yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't looked at their Cooler Master Case Master 5 or whatever the fuck it was. Cooler Master Case 5 or 3 or whatever, which is a great name. That's the only Cooler Master case I've been interested in for years. Because Cooler Master are a bit shit. Their power supplies were ugly and underperforming and pretty awful, and their cases were tacky.
They've been doing better recently. They've done a much better job of remarketing all their products. They've just given them all horrible names.
Yeah, fair enough. I know case market for me at the moment is just awful. Anyway, it's like, I just want to sit down with the guy who designs the Corsair cases and be like, look, your products would have been revolutionary 2 years ago, but you release them every year, and it's just like, please get with the product. You used to be visionaries, you used to have the best possible cases on the market, and now look at you. You're 2 years behind.
Here we go. They've got one called the Cooler Master Case Maker 5.
Oh no! that is at least abbreviate it.
I know, like where are all the case companies that are calling them that we used to call them like, I don't know, like Vortex Case, and having like really cool names.
Oh no, that's so terrible. They was just like.
But it had a cool name and everybody remembered it. Nobody's going to remember that name.
No, everybody remembers it because it was terrible.
Well, that might be true.
Oh, no, I don't know. Just those kind of cases, that kind of era, like 2004, 5, and 6 and stuff like that. Just the silver, thin, like horrible plasticky side panels with the cheap, tiny little 80mm fans with the kind of just...
And all the
weird
motherboards were green back then.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was a time.
The PCI slots were all like random colours as well. They were like orange and a white one, and then there was a blue one in there.
Oh, I definitely don't. Yeah, I mean, my knowledge from computers like fully stems from around 2008, where kind of Crisis came out and the gaming. I mean, it was pretty much Crisis because the gaming PC market just went fucking mad because nobody could run Crisis. Which is why we have the joke, can it run Crisis, So nobody could run Crisis, so everybody was just like building more and more powerful PCs, and then aesthetics became a thing, and partially because of like peripherals, like Logitech had their gaming peripherals with like backlighting and stuff like that, so aesthetics became a proper kind of market, as well as just pure performance. And Asus, of course, had their ROG line, which was some of the first motherboards to be just all black with a bit of red and stuff like that. So now Asus are arseholes, but oh well. Oh yeah, so in other GTX, Nvidia news,
GTX Nvidia,
yeah, which was supposed to flow very nicely off of the Titan discussion, but
derailing the discussion.
Yeah, so the 1063GB model has been released. When I wrote this originally, yeah, it was just it wasn't released. Let's put it that way. So the 1060 386GB has 1,128 CUDA cores, 1,280 CUDA cores, and it runs 17,000 megahertz or whatever, 70,000 megahertz. There you go, and has 600 gigabytes of RAM. And so the 1063GB has 1152 CUDA cores and the same everything else other than the 3 gigabytes of RAM, and it's coming in at about $200. And so it, like I predicted when I wrote this, it should, be slightly slower than the 480 and kind of perform in between 470 and 480 kind of performance, which is what it does now. Fair enough. I got it right. Whoop-de-doo for me. Old news. The 1050 is still a bit up in the air. We really haven't learnt much about it since I wrote this. And again, it's just such a strange thing for Nvidia to do. Why wouldn't they just make the 1063GB a 1050? Or if they realized that they were going to have to do this in the first place, why didn't they release a 1060 Ti and then a 1060 and then a 1050? Because marketing it as a 1063GB model just sounds like a 1063GB model, but it performs worse because it has less CUDA cores. They cut it down. It just makes no sense to me that why they would do that. My theory is that the 480 came out and Nvidia were like, yeah, it's alright, let's release 1060. Oh shit, they have a 470 and a 460. What do we do now? Quickly, hack to pieces the 1060 and you make something for the 460, and then like now we have a 3 GB model 1060 and possibly or probably 1050. And again, I don't know. Like I was saying before, well, to you, Jamie, specifically, but I don't know how they can justify making a whole new GPU. Like, just releasing a 1060 3 GB model as a 1050 would make a lot more sense to me than putting the R&D into a completely different GPU.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this is we can discuss this earlier, but my thoughts on this are that perhaps, and obviously 100% speculation, perhaps that maybe when they started developing a GPU, they started developing or had an idea for a GPU that just didn't work out. And so perhaps, and it just didn't perform anywhere near what they wanted, but perhaps it was good enough for a lower end card. And so they decided to keep the R&D going and then restart or build something for the higher end platform.
Well, you were talking about that with the 460, because like I was saying earlier on, the 460 seems like a bit of an odd graphics card, the way where it is. But then again, you have Polaris 11 and Polaris 10. Like, maybe they were aiming Polaris 11 to be the high end, but it failed, so they just kept Polaris 11 as the 460 and then developed Polaris 10 as a kind of an experiment that kind of failed. Yeah, but then with Nvidia, like the 1050, it's so.
I think the 1063 gig should have probably been a 1050 Ti.
Yeah, a 1050 Ti. Oh,
because I feel like that fits in more. It's way better than the 1050, but under the 1060. But it makes that very compelling price.
Also, the naming schemes would just make more sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's confusing from a consumer's point of view, because if I didn't know anything about computers and I want to build my first gaming rig, and I'm looking and this YouTuber's like, you should buy a 1060, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy a 1060, and you're like, oh, that one's cheap, I'll have that one, and it's 3 gig model, that's gonna suck.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're wondering, why am I getting like 10 less FPS than that guy was benchmarking?
Yeah, it's mad. It's just confusing for the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. And like even because they could be confused. They could be like, oh, if it's only got 3 GB of RAM, then I could get a really fancy 1060 3 GB, and it'll only be the RAM. Maybe I won't be able to run this game because it's got too much RAM, but I'll still be able to get more FPS in this because it's a better cooled card and stuff like that. Whereas no, you won't. You won't get anywhere near that because it's completely different.
And that's why changing the RAM on a specific GPU in the past was never an issue for anyone, because you just got a card with less RAM, but actually they've changed the CUDA cores and it's not really the same card anymore.
Yeah, another dick move. So let's talk about a company that's a bit of a dickhead just because it doesn't release any fucking information. And also, I mean, the rumor mill has been running strong on Zen because it's been such a long time since we've heard Zen, and AMD takes a long time to pick up slack with rumors. Right, rumors of the 1080 and all the 10 series graphics cards were months and months and months before we started getting stuff about 480s. It was like a couple of weeks before the 480 came out, before we knew half the stuff that we knew about the 1080s and 1070s, months before they came out. It's unfortunate, but there's just not as many people that are as interested in AMD, obviously, as they are in Nvidia, so the rumor mill is slow. But recently, while my internet was out, fucking huge amount of news has come out for Zen. And originally we were going to do episode 15 and 16 on the Wednesday, but my internet was out. And 16 would be Quantum. And then we were going to do some more. We were going to go up to about episode 20 or so, right? And we were going to do a full episode on Zen, because even just before my internet went out, there was like quite a bit of Zen news coming out just then. So we thought, if there's that much news now, and we're getting slides and everything like that, then by episode 20 or so, there'll be a ton. We could do a whole episode on it, pretty much. Didn't quite work out that way, but, let's do a little bit of it here. Now, I've kind of cherry-picked a little bit of the information, as well as this is some of the information that I remember from before, and some that I've just recently read up, because I spent a couple hours today trying to catch up on stuff, and a couple hours yesterday trying to catch up on stuff. That's why we didn't do it yesterday. We just weren't prepared enough. Because as I've had my internet back for half a week, and I have like a month's worth of news to go through. it seems like for the engine, well, for what Zen might be, it's kind of speculation, but for now, it seems like Zen is using separate scheduling units for integer and floating point workloads. And we can't really tell because AMD hasn't really sent out engineering samples or shown engineering samples or done anything like that. But this could mean, and it could mean, because again, even with Bulldozer and Pardrive and all that, their previous architecture could have meant faster, ended up not because nobody supported it. But this could mean that, at least in modern APUs, we'll have better performance, multi-core workloads and stuff like that. It just means it kind of streamlines the way that cores and the actual whole CPU as a whole communicates with itself, because it just streamlines the workflow, which is interesting. As well as, in fact, today I think Linus Tech Tips made a nice video where Luke talked about modern APUs such as Vulkan, where they use a lot more of the cores, and it's not because previously and DirectX 11 and OpenGL and stuff, the first core, like core 0, say, would be processing a ton of stuff, and then core 2, 3, and 4, or core 1, 2, 3, and 4, or something, or 3, or whatever, wouldn't be processing that much. It got up to just about 6 cores, but the last 2 wouldn't be doing much at all. Whereas with Vulkan, there's a lot less load on the main core, and it's nice and evenly spread out up to at least 8 cores, if not theoretically more than that, with more support. So that's really nice. So with Zen and with Vulkan, which used to kind of be Mantle, a lot of the backbone of Vulkan is Mantle. So I think AMD kind of experimented with that and used that kind of knowledge and that kind of APU building, and also seeing what's happening with DirectX 12 and Vulkan and stuff, to make Zen kind of future-proof in a way. So that, maybe not in the first generation, maybe not in the second, as with every AMD product, well, they'll get a next generation, but they'll hopefully, be able to work really well with all this stuff for years to come. Whereas their previous generation, Bulldozer and all that stuff, was like, yeah, it's all right, and then the next generation it was terrible. But yeah, so AMD did show an early engineering sample beat a 6900K, but like me and Jamie discussed earlier, that's pretty much best case scenario. They are fantastic at building hype around their products. Even look at the 480, it's a good graphics card, but they tend to oversell their products a lot.
But yeah, people buy them because of it, so you can't really blame them.
Yeah. So if the engineering sample is anything to do with the actual production models, then it's going to be decently fast. As well as Zen is using branch prediction instructions, so that's something that Intel have had since Sandy Bridge, which is one of the many reasons that AMD processors are part of that period of Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge and all that stuff were so much slower. The way I understand it, at least, is that branch prediction is pretty much like an API for the CPU. It's pretty much just a resource management kind of system of if this then that, pretty much. They confirmed that Zen will release in kind of Q1 of 2017, which is a bit peculiar. So Summit Ridge, Q1, so first 3 months or so. But Vega 10 is supposed to launch in the kind of first half. So by the looks of things, with Vega 10 possibly having up to 10 teraflops and 16 gigabytes of HBM2, which is fucking impressive, it's going to demolish pretty much everything. But if it releases in the first half, that's a long time. It's not going to release this year. So I wonder if they haven't taken the time and what they've learned from Polaris and pumped that into kind of making a relatively more robust system of, maybe more overclocking or maybe just more efficient. So I wonder if it will, compete directly with, it seems like it will compete directly with the 11 series of NVIDIA graphics cards rather than the 10 series. And also, it would make a lot more sense by saying maybe Vega 10 is a 590 and a 580, and then Vega 11 is maybe a 580 and a 570 and a 560, and then Greenland might even be like a Fury type card, or it might just be, the Fire Pros, who knows. So yeah, I don't know, because it's taking a long time. I doubt it will just kind of be a slightly beefed up version of Polaris. I think it will be slightly different, maybe like, GNC 4.5 or something like that. Kind of a revision, sort of like even Maxwell to Kepler, or maybe it's just Maxwell to Pascal, maybe just a bit more efficient, or something like that. The thing is, we don't know. We have no idea. But it's interesting to get pretty much confirmed from AMD themselves that it will be released in the first half of 2017. And on that note, Navi seems to be launching in late 2017, very late, or pretty early 2018. And Navi should be including HBM3 and, on the slightly lower end, something like GDDR6. So along with Navi then, we should also be seeing Zen Plus products, so the next generation of Zen, slightly after that. And just before Navi, I believe Raven Ridge is supposed to come out, which supposedly has Zen cores, at least 4 of them, with some Polaris GPU components, and maybe even HBM. Which again, Jamie assures me, I still think it's possible. I still think that it is possible. I've been saying this for a while now. I reckon that with Polaris and with Zen and everything, they're going to stick HBM. But it is pretty fucking difficult.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've been saying. Like, I'd love to see them do it, and you know what? They may well do. But it's going to be one of those interesting technical feats. It's never been done before. There's no set way of doing it, and it's very difficult to do that. There's a lot to take into consideration. There's a lot. The die would have to change quite a lot. I'm not saying AMD couldn't do it, but they've certainly got their work cut out for them.
Yeah, but again, I think it would just be dedicated for, the GPU, because I think you'd still have the RAM on the board and everything. But then moving the kind of memory controller onto the CPU die to interface with the HBM and having them kind of relatively even more separate than they were before, it's kind of tricky and quite difficult. And of course, you'd have to have super custom boards, like motherboards and stuff. So, it depends what chipsets you have and how they interface, and because you'd have the memory controller for the CPU still on the board, but then the memory controller in the CPU for the GPU. But then, that being said, that could then lead to boards that can have both APUs and dedicated Zen CPUs. Yeah, so the AM4 platform could be a universal for APUs and GPUs. I mean, we've had that in the past. We've had FM2 with APUs and CPUs and stuff, but we could have the high-end AM4 platform just have APU support as well.
They won't do that. At least I don't think so. Because they will. It won't just allow for it. They will 100% have the non-GPU and GPU CPUs on a single chip, but they'll only be cut down versions like they are currently. They're gonna, for their enthusiast stuff, they're gonna have a different chip set. They're probably gonna go up to 4 or 6 cores on those kind of FM style sockets, because you just need a bigger socket to do more stuff with, and the bigger socket means increased costs, and the people who are buying those aren't spending a lot of money. That's the point of buying them. And so,
but then if you halve the cost, so say you have the enthusiast platform with the biggest socket set, or with the standard size socket, I suppose, and it has 8 cores, right? If you halve that, it wouldn't necessarily be half of the CPU size, but then you could stick a GPU on it with the the HBM does take up a lot of space though. Plus, then I suppose at that point you'd be looking at the heat anyway, wouldn't you? So
and the difficulty is you need one CPUs that have GPU pin outs will need on the CPU base will on the PCB will need different pin layouts to just CPUs. Now, if you've just got cores on it, you can, because the way it'll be doing exactly the same way AMD do currently. They'll just build the F1 860K is effectively a 7850K, and all they've done is not add a GPU in, and those pins that are for the GPU just don't work. And so you're only utilizing half a socket. If you've got a big enthusiast platform, you'll then need to add way more for the socket. So, I mean, it's difficult. Either to do an all-inclusive platform, you'll need an absolutely massive socket, and almost certainly, no matter what CPU you choose, some of the pins aren't going to be used. And I think for somebody who's looking for that budget-oriented, good GPU on a CPU style, maybe playing some like MOBAs and such, they're just not going to want to pay the amount of additional costs you're going to need to pay to build a board like that. I think it makes more sense to have two platforms.
Yeah, as well as with the with the APU stuff, I suppose it is for a lot of with APUs in the past, they have been for a lot cheaper of kind of builds. If you were really buying an APU, you could pair it with a lower end GPU, maybe even at a point something like a 460, but it's still going to be a lot cheaper of a system than, say, somebody that's buying an 8-core or even a 6-core or something like that, Zen.
Yeah, because if somebody's buying an 8-core, they're not sticking a 460 in it,
Yeah.
They're going to be spending a bit more, so. And plus, that way that means you can have two chipsets, meaning you can have an enthusiast-based chipset for platforms that only can have cores on it, and you can have a more gaming-oriented chipset for the ones that can have GPU cores on, and you're just gonna, probably on that more enthusiast platform, you're probably going to be able to add more RAM, that kind of thing. I'd be surprised if they don't do quad channel.
No, so far AM4 seems to be dual channel.
Yeah, but I haven't seen any rumor anything, and I haven't thought to look into this specifically. But I don't know what they're doing with the memory controller. If the memory controller is still staying on the motherboard, like it is currently, they could quite happily have quad channel memory.
Yeah, it's an odd one, and again,
they board partner thing though.
Yeah, but they again, they released this is something that I kind of glossed over when I was looking at it because I was more interested in the actual CPUs. But they released slides essentially that they have the enthusiast, the kind of mainstream, then the essential, and then a small form factor boards. Now that the one that really interested me was the small form factor, because we've only really seen server boards that are kind of mini ITX size on AMD, on the previous AMD platforms, whereas Intel has dominated ITX. You really I don't even know if you can find.
FM2 Plus had ITX.
Okay, yeah, but it's like AM platform boards really didn't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so AM4 seems to have a small form factor, but what kind of concerned me was they kind of had the slide as it being a completely different chipset, and it seemed to be below just the way that they laid it out. It seemed to be below the essential platform. Now I don't know if if board partners could put the higher end chipsets and stuff like that on the boards, or whether it's kind of AMD are like, nah, you use this chipset.
It'll be board partners' discretion, even if AMD suggests one, because ultimately it's up to how they design the board. If they can make it work, then they can make it work.
But just having it in the slide anyway makes me think that you'll be able to use Zen in ITX systems, which will be fantastic. Because I mean, everybody's kind of building smaller and smaller PCs, apart from people who want like 4 GPUs, which is nobody. Because first of all, you can't really do that on Nvidia now anyway. But you know, so I mean, now that Nvidia, especially, I mean, with Vega 10, I suppose you could stick 4 in, but don't. You know, I suppose now that Nvidia and stuff like that have scrapped that, and AMD are probably going to follow suit soon, because really and truly 3 and 4, maybe with modern APIs, it might be a little bit better, where you could have 2 of the GPUs rendering half the screen and 2 of the GPUs rendering the other half. You know, maybe that'll work. But again, it increases the latency, increases the complexity, and kind of slows things down overall when you get to a point anyway. So I think 2 GPU maximum systems are just going to be the kind of norm for extremely high-end stuff, as they are becoming now because of Nvidia anyway. So I think having the option to go mini ITX, and especially micro ATX, which is my favorite form factor, which is what my next PC will be eventually, I think that that's the kind of way to go. And I like that AMD have kind of said, hey, we're doing the small form factor stuff again, or now anyway. So that's nice to see. But so the essential is essentially just OEM partners, like basic boards with just basic features with the CPU in the middle. The mainstream will be kind of like, well, the regular consumer boards that we buy nowadays from Asus and MSI, and then you've got the enthusiast kind of ROG branded killer gaming, all that stuff. The stupidly overpriced and solid, admittedly, mostly garish products on the market nowadays. So it's nice to see that they're releasing at least that kind of stuff. But it even in the enthusiast level one, it did seem like it was dual channel memory. But again, like you said, if it is down to the board partners, this might just be kind of a recommended kind of list of the stuff that you could do with the chipset and with just the stuff on the boards, rather than a final.
Yeah, and that's what it'd probably be. I mean, GPUs are very much like that. They'll obviously give them the GPUs for how it should look, and then if build partners want to make it themselves, then that's on them to figure it out.
Alright, you got anything? Because I'm pretty much out.
I guess maybe we should touch on Tech Syndicate before we...
Yeah, sure. So Tech Syndicate have been my favorite YouTube channel since forever, really. I loved their podcast and everything. Unfortunately, recently, and again, I'd like it to settle a bit more than it has, and to read into it a little bit more. I kind of wish I was there, but also, I don't know, it's interesting to look at it from afterwards, because there were so many people throwing out accusations everywhere that it was a bit hectic, and I don't know. But so far, what it kind of looks like is that Logan didn't really run the business properly, and it was frustrating people. And Kane wanted to be a proper business partner to have a share in the company, but Logan didn't want that. So Kane left and kind of said some things, and then the community was wondering about the Patreon money, and Logan handled it absolutely the worst possible way you could do it, which is essentially killing the website and the forums, and then also de-adminning Wendell.
That was such a bad move.
Yeah. I mean, Jamie, if you fucking de-admin me from our website, I'm gonna kill you.
That's okay, you're not an admin already.
Yeah, I mean, I was when we had a working website of maintenance mode.
What are you talking
and
about?
now that we don't have...
working.
Yeah, our website's fine. Yeah, it's definitely not just a splash screen. It's definitely... Our old website was beautiful. I mean, if you could actually access it and you didn't have just maintenance mode.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. But we're using Squarespace now, aren't we?
Build it beautiful.
Yeah, because because WordPress just kind of disintegrated, right?
I was too lazy to code in WordPress. I just don't have the time for it. If you've got time to micromanage and actually code for WordPress, it's one of the better platforms out there. I just don't have the time for it.
I mean, Squarespace is built off of WordPress, isn't it? So
Once upon a time.
Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, so and then Wendell released like very calm, collected, informative updates, and Logan released swearing, mocking, joking updates that just didn't help anybody. As well as even during the periods of silence, unfortunately, Pistol kind of fed the trolls in a sense because, well, she did not have a good time. Let's put it that way. So it's a big mess, and Wendell has left. He has very graciously, I think, kind of, and he's managed it very well. But he's left Logan with the big YouTube channel, and all the branding and everything. He might be rebranding the forums. If so, I'll make a new proper account because I've had an old one that I really, I go in there and I have a look, but I don't really contribute that much. I'm that kind of dickhead. But Wendell, I mean, he built the forums from the ground up pretty much, and he's always been about the community. And I don't really think anybody watches the tech for Logan. He's a good entertainer and he rambles, but he's kind of me in this situation. But I won't embezzle money and take money off of Patreon peoples and shit. I mean, I might do, but currently we don't make anything, so it's all right.
Yeah. That's your justification. Well, we don't make any money, so it's not like I can if I want to.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a nightmare, but hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of Wendell actually, because he's hopefully going to be getting the was it the Enterprise, the hardware, and the Linux, right?
That's what he was hoping for.
Yeah, as well as the forums. And if nothing else, I'd just like him to get control of the forums, frankly. Maybe rebrand it as something else, because Tech Syndicate is now a dead name. Trying to watch Logan's one-man show is depressing.
Yeah, I've kind of lost interest recently. It hasn't been as good. I stopped watching the tech after Wendell left because I really enjoyed his input, and then they got some other people on who I don't really like.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Rooster. I never liked you.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
And that guy from Sapphire and the awkward cut when they mention Wendell. Yeah, it's a real shame. It's a real shame. I mean, I was going to ask Tech Syndicate if they could send us like a couple of their older shirts, and then I'd wear nothing but Tech Syndicate shirts. But fuck, I'm not doing that anymore, and I'm glad I didn't do that before they went downhill. It's a real shame. It's just it makes you worry. I mean, I suppose it was just mainly Logan's kind of management of the company, and I don't think he really viewed it as a company necessarily. Whereas Wendell having a company other than Tech Syndicate kind of knew how to do it, and I think if you were I were Logan, you'd let Wendell handle that shit because he has a successful company.
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation is just a shame, really. I mean, it is what it is. And I'm excited to see what Wendell does in the future as far as content is concerned. I don't think I'm going to keep watching Tech Syndicate unless they release some compelling content. But I know there's a new direction for that channel, or at least Logan has a new direction for the channel. And
well, that was some of the original strife, wasn't it? That apparently Logan was aiming towards a new direction, and you can see from the last year or so he's hired so many new people and done odd things, and so he was trying to move in a new direction. He just used the funds inappropriately to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's sad, but I mean, there's not a great deal to say about it. Yeah.
I mean, we did kind of jump on the bandwagon on hating on Logan, but at least we did it like 2 weeks late.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it better.
Yeah.
So, I guess on to our news before we finish.
Yeah.
So, this is the last episode of Technically Wrong, with a little star next to it that says, actually not the last episode. Working title.
Yeah. So this is the end of an era. Like, I think you titled it, right?
Yeah, and so
okay, good.
This is going to be the end of the podcast as we know it, because we've just, as if there's anyone watching this, we've just rebranded all the YouTube channel and the Facebook and all the Twitter pages and all that nonsense to kind of new logos. We're designing a new site. We're moving away from just doing podcasts. Podcasts are still going to be a thing, but they're going to go away for just a short time until maybe mid-November. Exact date to be decided, although I think it'll probably be around the 19th. And then we're going to start the podcast again. When we start again, they're going to be fully videoed podcasts. So people who are watching on YouTube will get a little bit more entertainment out of it.
We're not going to be stuck in 2008, essentially.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we also want to make the podcast more accessible. And so the podcast is going to be on SoundCloud and other places.
Something I'll have you know I asked for at the beginning.
Shush. And so along with that, we're actually... and that new videoed content, we're also going to be doing more tech stuff and more tech videos. And so there'll be a full release schedule coming. It won't start as a full release schedule, but we'll kind of build up to it. And we're hoping a couple of videos a week, tech reviews, PC stuff, mods, all kind of ridiculous stuff.
Think about it sort of like Tech Syndicate Hardware and Tech Syndicate Linux, really.
Yeah,
that's what we're going to try and do. And we're also trying to focus on kind of a mid-range market, mostly because we don't have any money. But yeah, I think not a lot of people have enough money to buy two 1080s or a 1080, especially not a Titan. So I think focusing on things like I have a 480, and let's have a look at what the 280s and 380s and 285s and stuff like that can get you nowadays. What old dual GPU graphics cards can get you. I mean, I still have a 7090. That was a damn good card. A bit loud, but really and truly, like, you can pick it up now for less than my 480, So, still damn good. I mean, incredible price to performance if you can get it to work. But stuff like that, like old 590s and old dual GPU graphics cards, see what a 480 can do nowadays.
Yeah, and so there's going to be lots of
a GTX 480, I have to...
Yeah.
clarify that, actually.
So yeah, there's going to be lots of that type of content. I mean, from me specifically, there's going to be lots of Linux stuff. There's going to be programming stuff. There's going to be some PC modding stuff, general hardware stuff. We're going to be doing some silly things like alternatives to thermal paste, and
Are we? No,
yes,
we're not. Oh
yes. And we're going to be destroying computers in all manner of ways. I'm going to be doing some modding, some hardware hacks on stuff like Xboxes and stuff just for fun, and there'll be all sorts of stuff. So stay tuned for that, because that'll be coming mid-November, same time as the podcast.
Yeah, and I mean, most of this stuff is coming because I'm moving finally. Yes. And me and Jamie will be sharing an office space house.
Yeah. An office house.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2 floors of house, an attic of office.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I mean, that's the plan for the future. And this will be the live podcast for a little while, but we'll definitely be back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, so...
I don't know,
closing statements?
32 terabyte SSDs might be a thing in like 10 years. Because, they cost more than a house now, and in 10 years, you might be able to buy one for like a year's worth of salary, But yeah, 32 terabyte SSDs exist, and I need a new phone because my charging port doesn't work with any of my cables properly, and all I really want I was looking at the Moto X, and I thought about getting kind of a new generation Moto X, but you can get like a little message that comes on when you turn your phone on, and I just want mine to say hello from the NSA.
Okay then.